Hello everyone, transfer deadline day with me, Kieran from Speaking Spurs, talking all things Tottenham. And I'm just so happy that I can come back from work to do a video and talk about actual signings come in at the club. So that's what we're talking about, the incomings of Bentancur and Kulasevski from Juventus. We've had a few outgoings today. One is pretty much on the brink, and that's Dele Alli to Everton. He's just got to have his medical before that can go through, so we'll talk a bit about that. And just to let you know, I am going to be doing a live stream today. It's scheduled for 10:15. That gives us the 45 minutes leading up to the end of the transfer window, just in case Tottenham strike any more deals. We'll talk about what's happened at other clubs that has affected our potential deals, which has led on to us going back in for Kulusevski. And obviously you can comment live during that, so we can have the discussion going back and forth. So 10:15 that one is. If you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications, you'll get notified before that's about to go live. You'll get notified when it's live. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, support the video with a like, post your comments below, continue the conversation on Spurs. But let's start by talking about one of the signings that's come in, and that is Rodrigo Bentancur from Juventus, subject to international clearance and a work permit, which obviously is no problem because he plays international football. So let's talk a little bit about him. Born in Nueva Helvecia, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is in Uruguay. He came through the ranks at Boca Juniors, making his senior debut for them in 2015 and winning 2 Primera Division titles and a Copa Argentina during his time at the club. He then in 2017 moved to Juventus, where he continued to achieve success. He's won 3 consecutive Serie A titles between 2018 and 2020. In addition, he's lifted the Supercoppa Italiana twice and the Coppa Italia twice, and that was the 2017-18 season and then again last season. The 24-year-old has featured regularly in Serie A and the UEFA Champions League throughout his time with Juventus. He's actually played against us in the latter competition during the 2017-18 season. Let's talk internationally. He's represented Uruguay since 2017, part of the young side that won the Under-20 South American Championships in 2017, made his senior international debut later that year and has subsequently represented his country at the 2018 FIFA World Cup. And in addition, the 2019 and 2021 installments of the Copa America. So to date, he has 46 senior caps for them. He will join up with us for the first time following Uruguay's World Cup qualifier against Venezuela on Tuesday. So he comes in, a decent midfielder. He comes with a bag of experience for a 24-year-old. I know there were a lot of people when we were linked with Bentancur that were very unsure whether they wanted him, felt they didn't know enough about him. But look, he's a talented player at the end of the day. He's played consecutively a lot for Juventus, not just in the league, but also in the Champions League. And to do that between the ages of 21 and 24, with the kind of players they've had in and around the squad, it says a lot about him and the managers that have trusted him whilst they've been there. So for us, I do think this is a good sign, and he comes with the experience of a winning mentality, which is something a lot of our players unfortunately don't have, because we tend to be Spursy, they say, and fall at the last hurdle. So I think in midfield, this is going to be a massive help. Obviously, we need midfielders in because we've managed to move some out the door. Moving on to the next one, Kulasevsky, Dejan Kulusevski, the Swedish international, again. So this one is actually a loan deal with an option to buy, whereas Bentancur is an actual signing. So he joins us on an 18-month loan with the option to buy from Serie A side. 18-month loan, that's a pretty good one. I'm impressed at that. It gives us a bit more time to figure out if we want him. Juventus financially need these players off their books or to be sold, but at least his wages are being covered in that time. I know they haven't got money come in. They've obviously signed Vlahovic, which has cost them an absolute bomb. So for them, this is important to have these players off the wage bill. And for us, it gives us a bit of extra time to look at him. So about him, born in Stockholm, represents Sweden at international level. He moved away from his home country as a 16-year-old to join the youth ranks at Italian club Atalanta. He progressed and became a first-team player, making his senior debut in Serie A in January 2019. Spent the first half of the following season on loan at Parma. He impressed. He earned a move to Juventus in January 2020, signed by current sporting director at Spurs, Paratici. He then spent the remainder of that campaign back on loan at Parma. He became a regular. He was a regular starter there. He scored 10 goals and provided 9 assists in 39 appearances. Now, for a youngster, that's not a bad return whatsoever. And in that season, it earned him the title of 2019-2020 Best Young Player in Serie A. So it just tells you the kind of exciting player they were looking at the time. So then at Juventus, we're talking the 2020-21 season, he actually featured in all but 3 of their Serie A matches, starting every game as they lifted the Coppa Italia, scoring and providing an assist in the 2-1 victory over his former club, Atalanta, in the final. He helped them win the Supercoppa Italiana. He represented Sweden at his first major international tournament, which was the delayed Euro 2020 finals last summer. He set up 2 goals in his nation's memorable 3-2 win over Poland to progress to the knockout stages as group winners. During the first half of this current season, he has made 27 appearances in all competitions for Juventus, including 5 in the Champions League, to take his overall tally to 74 appearances and 9 goals for Juventus. To date, he's won 20 caps for Sweden, scoring once. So, about him, he's another one that a lot of a lot of fans weren't overly excited about. However, he's only 21. They were desperate to have him at Juventus. At Juventus, it hasn't been as successful as it was when he was on loan at Parma. But the great thing about him was the performances at Parma. That's what really put him into the limelight. He's already won the best young player in Serie A. He's playing on the international stage and playing well there. Now, his lack of goals and assists at Juventus, unlike Bentancur, who has been very much involved a lot, Kulasevsky, since he's been there, hasn't always been a starter. There's a lot more competition, and he is younger than Bentancur. Bentancur is 24 years old. Kulusevski is only 21. And with a lot of the talent at their disposal, Kulusevski is obviously going to get less chances, especially in an attacking sense. He was competing up against players like Cristiano Ronaldo, so you can forgive the fact that he probably didn't play as much as he would like to have. And us as fans, we have to accept that. So you can't judge him solely on his performances since he's been at Juventus, because chances have been harder to come by. I do think a very talented player, a good addition to the team, but sensible that we're going for an 18-month loan deal. You've got to protect yourself in that sense. So they are the 2 players that have come in, both from Juventus. Other players that we were linked with, Alvaro Morata, who's obviously on loan at Juve. That one never really got going in that sense. They didn't want to do a deal with us. Carrasco was another exciting one, but the problem is that's very unlikely to get done, just because if it happens, it leaves his club with limited time to find a replacement. It's already hard enough in January to find a striker, as West Ham have been finding out in this transfer window. It tends to be, for strikers, it tends to be overpriced. They end up being quite last minute. And you pay over the odds. Clubs struggle to get some in. So deals for strikers, they break down quite often in January. We should know. How long have we been trying to sign another striker? We end up panic buying backup strikers, because for us, they know we need a second striker, so the price goes up. If you go for an English player, the price goes even further up. Then you've got to put up with the fact that the systems we've played mean they don't want to come to Spurs, because they're going to get less game time, because Harry Kane plays all the time when fit, which means their only chances of coming is not fit. The only way you will get a top quality striker come in is if they are told that we are playing with 2 front men, or it has to be somebody that can play in a front 3. So it puts a lot of strikers off. But now we've got that out of the way, let's talk about outgoings from the first team. So the first one we'll talk about, Giovanni Lo Celso, one of the most frustrating players I've seen in a Spurs shirt, other than Tanguy, who we'll talk about in a bit as well. So Lo Celso has gone on loan to La Liga side Villarreal for the remainder of the season. He joined us from Real Betis in 2019 and has made 84 appearances in our colours to date, and he's only scored 8 goals. Now, my issue with him, has all the talent at his disposal. And if you actually look at his stats, even when he's playing badly, he still creates a lot of chances. Part of my problem is he doesn't score often enough. He's injured way too often. And he's great at Argentina. I know he's got a lot of great players around him, but it almost seems to me like he's on loan to us and Argentina is his parent club, because that's where the best performances come. Now, there's been a lot of talk about his temperament, and he's quite an introvert. So it's not that people don't like him. He's not somebody that they can talk to a lot and banter with. Keeps himself quite to himself. Look, and on a personal level, if that's what he wants to do, great. But in a team sport, it is going to affect things when you're at the top level. So unfortunately for him, it's not working out. He's gone out there. We know that he can do it in La Liga because he's done it before. So, good luck to him. I hope that he can get his confidence back, stay fit, and then we can reassess things in the summer as to what we do with him, because he can create chances. One of the biggest issues that we have with certain players, and this is another thing that we'll talk about with Bryan Gil, different scenarios though. So Lo Celso, quite injury prone. Bryan Gil, first season in the Premier League, he's small, he's lightweight. Every time Lo Celso comes back from injury, he has to be reintegrated back into the squad. So you build your fitness back, but then you need to get match fitness. And it's not his fault. It's Tottenham's. We are in a situation where we've fallen so far. You can't allow these players time in matches to build their fitness, because we need results. We need to get right back up there where we were a few seasons ago. So for a player like Lo Celso, you're going to get the odd 20 minutes here and there. That's not enough time to build match fitness back properly. So every time you come on, you're still playing catch up in a team that are desperate for results. Similarly, Bryan Gil, because he's a youngster, he's skillful, but I think he's kind of an old style luxury player. He's got that low centre of gravity, likes to drift in a lot, and in certain systems it isn't going to work. And for him so far at Spurs, hasn't had a lot of game time. But yeah, Lo Celso on loan, Villarreal. Good move for him. Now let's talk about Bryan Gil. So we know he joined us from Sevilla in the deal where Lamela went the other way. Lamela has been the more successful of the two, and he's actually come out himself saying that he feels like he's hit the prime of his career, which of course he has. Suffers loads of injuries at Spurs, was meant to be billed as what was going to be our Gareth Bale replacement. Had lots of injuries. Really frustrating hit and miss kind of player. I personally think we still should have kept him, because in his last season under Mourinho, I think he was playing really well. Every pre-season, Lamela was great. Didn't work out in the end, and he ended up moving on, and he's been doing okay. So Bryan Gil joined us from there. He's made 20 appearances across all competitions in our colours to date, mostly from the bench. And when he comes off from the bench, he doesn't get a lot of game time. So it's really hard to judge him and how he's been so far. He's had moments where he looks really good. He's not scared to take people on. He likes to drift inside. He's a tricky customer. But, for the Premier League, it's a faster league than where he's come from in La Liga. Everybody's a bit more physical. So that's affected him a bit. And it takes time. You can't expect him to come in and hit the ground running. You look at Moussa Sissoko, and he'd been in the Premier League. It still took him ages to settle in. It happens to loads of players, but in the Premier League, you just don't get time. So he's gone out on loan to La Liga side Valencia. And that's till the end of the season. Now, interestingly, Valencia, we had agreed for them to have Tanguy and Ndombele on loan. Tanguy didn't want to go there, and quite rightly, because of where they're sitting in the league. I don't know what the proportion of wages was going to be that they would pay for him. So that fell apart. They then wanted Dele Alli on loan, but nothing really materialised there. I think they also were looking at Lo Celso and then ended up getting Bryan Gil. So, you can see Valencia are desperate to get midfielders in. But yeah, best luck to him. Now let's talk about Tanguy Ndombele, the single-handedly most frustrating person in Spurs history since I've been around anyway. So he joined us from Lyon. He is going back to Lyon. So as I said, had the deal lined up with Valencia. He didn't want to go, fair enough. PSG had been trying desperately to get him in. And this is because at Paris Saint-Germain, they were trying to get as many French players in as possible. Great for homegrown. which is a big thing in football these days. Also, these players then play with each other on international duty, which means they gel even more. They were trying to find a player to put in a swap deal. We couldn't agree on a player. Players there and didn't want to come to us, which is understandable. You know, they've got Champions League football. They push for titles. They push for cups. We push for hoping for top four. So at the moment, I can understand why they didn't want to move that way, which made the deal difficult. PSG didn't want to pay all the money out. So yeah, Tanguy has moved to Olympique Lyonnais until the end of the season on loan. So for us so far, he's made 91 appearances in all competitions, scoring 10 goals. And this is where he really disappoints. He's got all the talent you could ever want. Like, amazing with the ball at feet. The second the ball's not with him, he's not interested. He's lazy, doesn't track back. If he gets tackled, he falls to the floor and doesn't get up. He obviously had the moment that annoyed the fans where he trundled off the pitch when he was substituted, being overtaken by Brian Hill, who was on the other side of the pitch. Dele Alli went the whole way around the pitch and applauded the fans on his way off. So look, his attitude's just not right. We knew about it before he came. Many Lyon fans had spoken about it to Spurs fans on YouTube, social media platforms. So yeah, it is what it is. Next player we'll talk about going out the door is Jack Clarke. So this one happened a couple of days ago. It's a weird thing. Like, when we signed him, I wasn't sure why we signed him. Like, he's an old-fashioned wide player. And then we sent him back out on loan to Leeds, which seemed like Bielsa didn't want him there. But, you know, Leeds wanted him back in. He didn't really feature for them at all. He's had several loan spells with QPR and Stoke. He decided that he wanted to stay at Spurs and try and fight for a place. That hasn't happened. Yeah, and he joined us from Leeds in 2019. He's been a regular in our development squad this season, scoring 4 goals in 18 appearances in all competitions. But is that just his standard now? I can't see him ever being a first-team player for Spurs. So what he's done now, so he came from the Championship to the Premier League. He's now had to drop down to League One side Sunderland for the remainder of the season. Now, I think for him, this will be a good move. It'll be a great confidence boost. I think he will do well at that standard. It'll be similar to the standard that he's just been playing for the development squad. So I think he'll get goals. And Sunderland have been very clever in the way they've done business. So they were signing a lot of older players towards the back end of their career. That wasn't working for them. And their new approach is to sign a lot of young talent that has gone to Premier League or top Championship clubs. And it's, for one reason or another, not quite worked out for them, or they're just not getting enough game time. And this approach, I think, is going to help them, you know, work their way back up. So for him, good move. For us, gets him off the wage bill, kind of helpful. I mean, they were the main ones until Dele Alli. So he's been linked with pretty much every club. Valencia, Crystal Palace, Paris Saint-Germain, Southampton, Newcastle, and then today, Everton. So Everton have been in talks with us all day over a permanent move for Dele Alli, not alone, worth in the region of 40 million. So, you know, he's been very out of favour. Every time a manager gives him a chance, he comes back in the squad and it doesn't work. So he was given a massive chance by Nuno Espirito Santo when he was in charge. And Dele went off on holiday and didn't really have a holiday. He worked his butt off to get in the fitness shape of his life. And he came back very fit. His running stats, very good. But unfortunately, his gameplay just wasn't working. And I don't think it's ultimately just him. Our shape had changed. He was very good at arriving in the box late. Had a great partnership with Harry Kane. And I think Son's partnership with Harry Kane has kind of pushed it to one side because it meant we could change the formation to suit those two, which unfortunately hindered Dele Alli. And I also think, you know, being a youngster, I think the lifestyle that comes alongside that kind of money hasn't helped him. I don't know what happened between him and Eric Dyer, but, you know, they had one of the most famous bromances in football in the early days of Dele Alli at Tottenham Hotspur. Like, they were all over social media. They were always together in Spurs videos that they put out on their own social media. And then, boom. And this was before the Spurs documentary, but you saw less and less time being spent with one another. So I'm wondering if there's been a few fallings out with some players there. But yeah, the Everton move is possibly going to happen. So Frank Lampard, we know, has become manager of Everton Football Club. Dele Alli had a lot of comparisons to Frank Lampard in his better years, being that goal-scoring midfielder with that ability to arrive in the box late, reading the game really well. Can he be the man to get the best out of him? I mean, I hope so. Like, this is a guy I think a lot of us fans, we absolutely loved. Like, remember the goal against Crystal Palace? Like, absolute brilliance. He scored some really important goals for us. Like, we're never going to forget that he was one of those players that helped get us to regular Champions League football. Some semi-finals, some finals, the pushing for a Premier League title. Like, so as much as I'm annoyed at the moment in the way he's playing, if he does go permanently, don't ever forget what he has done for us. But yeah, he's set to undergo a medical ahead of the permanent move that could be up to 40 million. Everton chairman Bill Kenwright held talks in his London office with Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy about the potential deal for Ali. Initially, it was thought that a deal was a long way from completion. But however, it's understood that a breakthrough has been made and negotiations and a medical were booked in for the player. If he does move to Goodison Park, it'll be on a 2.5-year contract with the transfer fee structured around payments based on his performances at Everton. So financially for us, we need him to do well on top of that. Any potential for Dele has not yet formally been agreed. It's believed the chances of the transfer taking place are looking good, with new Everton manager Frank Lampard a key factor in convincing him to join. I mean, I'm not sure he would have wanted to go Newcastle anyway because of the position they find themselves in, but Everton are not in a great position either. So he's got to believe and be convinced by Frank Lampard that they're going to, be safe come the end of the season. Right, so Everton, however, will not be able to take another player on loan from a Premier League club once they have loaned Donny van de Beek from Manchester United, which is set to be completed on deadline day. So you're only allowed 2 domestic loans under the current rules, and Everton have already signed El Ghazi on loan from Aston Villa as part of the deal that saw Lucas Digne move to Villa Park earlier in the transfer window. There you go. So they're the main ones. We've seen a couple of others go out the door, like some of the younger players. Niall John is another one that's gone out on loan. He's gone to Charlton, which I think is a very good move for him. I feel like there's a lot of guys that didn't go out on loan that could have done, and they've been around the development squad. Sometimes they like to do that to keep them together and gel them because they should be the next lot to come through. However, the loan system, as we've seen with Harry Kane, has massive perks to it. So, we'll probably see a couple more go out on loan. But, talking about Dele Alli, like, it's crazy. When you look at how good he was to where he is now, Gary Neville speaking about him, he had a desire to get in the box. He was always nasty, playing on the edge, got sent off once or twice, but has been talking about him recently, and he's almost been non-existent when on the pitch, and he's been like that for some time. He's still only 25 as well. Like, part of me wishes that he was only going to go out on loan to Everton, but obviously they can't take him on loan because of the current rules in the Premier League, because it'd be a domestic loan. And that's a shame, because I would have loved for him to go somewhere else, have a different atmosphere, a different outlook, and then come back to Spurs when hopefully we're in a better place because we've had a successful season, which means you get a reinvigorated Dele Alli that's like, do you know what? I've had my time away. Now I want to come back to something that I know, which was Tottenham with I say winning mentality, but a stronger mentality in football. So that's not going to happen. He will be going permanently. So it's sad to see, but unfortunately at the moment it doesn't look like there's a way back. And I think he needs to be loved. I think the reason why he done so well at Spurs in the early days is us as fans, we were like so behind him, it's unbelievable. And I think he needs to go somewhere where they'll appreciate him coming in the door, because he's fallen so far. He needs to build himself back up. It's not for us fans to get him there. He needs to show the desire and hunger to get back to that. So look, it's a shame. The other thing I do want to mention is obviously Christian Eriksen is back in the Premier League with Brentford. Part of me, because of nostalgia and how we feel about what he brought to us, in that team that pushed us on to great heights. You know, he had a good relationship with Dele Alli in terms of providing those balls over the box for him. A lot of us, I think, nostalgically wanted him to come back to Spurs. However, the state that we're in at the moment, where we're desperate to get back into the Champions League to win something, I think bringing in Christian Eriksen could have taken away from that a bit. He's going to take time. And they've been talking about this at Brentford. Don't expect to see him on the pitch soon. He's got to get match fitness back. He's only been training with the youth side at Ajax, and they've been very impressed. But that's like initial gameplay, small-sided games, playing 90 minutes in the Premier League with the tempo that it's at. Bearing in mind he moved to Italy, where he was playing at the time, which is nowhere near the Premier League. It'll be difficult. But he's only on a 6-month deal, which means there is hope. If he comes back to the Premier League, gets himself fit and shows that he can still do it, and that kind of energy and that intensity, don't rule it out as a summer move. Because you've got to remember, it was Conte that took him to Inter. And he's already said the door is always open. But I think right now it probably wasn't the right time, as much as a lot of us would have wanted it. And I've even commented back to some of you guys on this YouTube channel saying that I think we should have gone in for him. It was a no-brainer. But the longer I sit down and look at it, I think it is the right thing. Because he was only ever going to be taken on till the end of the season by any of these Premier League clubs, it gives us every chance in the summer to swoop. So we'll see what happens there. But that's the video for right now, talking about those incomings of Kulusevski and Bentancur, two very good signings, and I hope they hit the ground running. It'll be great to have some additions. Hopefully, we get some more over the line before the deadline. The possibility of a striker, although it's difficult, and maybe a right wing back, but that will depend on movement of Matt Doherty going out the way. Tariq Lamptey is another player apparently we've been looking at, and we've been linked with him earlier. Potter said Brighton are under no obligation to sell, but if someone comes in with a big enough offer and can give them a replacement on deadline day, so we could go in with a decent offer and Matt Doherty, that might be enough. It might be tempting enough just to take for the end of the season, and then they can source someone that they really want in the summer. Another guy that we were linked with is Bissouma. That link kind of came out of nowhere, but don't rule it out. I'm surprised nobody had been in for him anyway, like even over the summer. I think Bissouma is an incredible player. And without him, Brighton never looked the same. I would love to have him in at Spurs. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's more a summer target for a lot of the teams. But something could happen. Yes, the Amrabat deal as well, that has gone kaput. Completely dead in the water now. So don't expect that one to come through, especially now we've signed Bentancur as well. But obviously, Tanguy's gone. Dele's gone. Hill's gone, the Celso's gone. 3 of those are central midfielders, so you never know. Especially with Daniel Levy, just because Paratici is doing stuff. Paratici's one to pluck transfers out of nowhere anyway. As we saw when we signed Bryan Hill, we weren't linked with him at all. Then all of a sudden, boom, pops up on the screen. Tottenham signed Bryan Hill. Which I was like, what? We weren't even linked with him. And now it's not Tottenham in talks with Bryan Hill. Tottenham signed Bryan Hill. Daniel Levy. Tottenham signed Rafael van der Vaart. That wasn't spoke about. It just happened. So expect there to possibly be a surprise. I don't know, which is why I'm doing the live stream. Don't forget that is 10:15. Transfer window in the UK shuts at 11 p.m. So we've got plenty of time to see those deals over the line, have a conversation about them. But thanks for sticking around for this one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to post your comments below, and I will be talking to you at 10:15. So take care, and until then, come on you Spurs.